All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on The Sound. Oh boy, can I tell you, I can't explain how excited I am for you to hear this testimony, this story today. This is my brother from another mother, but my brother from the same father, our creator, my good friend, Jim Brady, and he is here to tell you his story to encourage you and just to release this sound, this frequency of hope. So before I get started into his story, I just want to let's get the message out to you, ask you to please hit the thumbs up, the like button, all that crazy stuff we have to do in order for these videos to get out to as many people as possible. We have to push it up in the algorithms in YouTube and in Facebook and in Instagram, every social platform. Thankful for these platforms, what we do have to do, what we have to do to the way that they are set up so that we can reach more people. So hit the like button, subscribe so that you can receive notifications, hit the notifications bell so that you can receive the messages of when the next videos are going to be released. And I know you don't want to miss this because I have some that are also coming out. Everybody's story is different, right? Everybody has a different story. So hit like, subscribe, share. The more you share, the more people will see. And please comment. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories. I am going to link below in the description box how you can get in touch with me at soundmediaproductions@gmail.com. If you have a story that you want to share, let's talk. Okay, but don't forget to do that. Like, subscribe, share, comment. All right, and that's it. All right, Jim. So I'm grateful for this Zoom platform because it's kind of cold today and I want to be going out right now. But I want to just, how about just take a few minutes to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, a little bit of background, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm from a small family. I've moved a number of times, and I think I'm planted where I'm supposed to be planted now, for a while anyway. And that's just outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I don't know, I'm kind of you might want to say a jack of all trades. There's not much I can't fix, build, or give instructions to build, I should say.
I'm glad you qualified that because you're going to get a lot of messages. Hey, can you help me with this?
My mind, I wake up in the morning and my mind says, well, I want to get all this done today. And I'm really fortunate if I can get half of it done.
Like all of us. Yeah. Yeah.
I had a whole lot more energy when I was in my mid-60s, but those days are past, and I find my energy level, it's not quite as high as it used to be.
And well deserved. It's okay. It's time to rest.
Sure.
Like we were talking before, before I hit the record button. It's like it's time for the younger people to do the work, and we'll encourage, we'll give out the wisdom, we'll do what we can, but it's their turn, right? It's time to rest.
I hear you.
Well, Jim's you also, well, I don't want to interrupt you. You can continue.
I've been retired since I was 62. That was mostly due to a knee replacement and some blood clots that followed that. I've had to go through a number of things in my life. You know, this platform that we're on right now is about overcoming hope, and sounds that are attached to that. It's the sound that that's always resonated in through me, the sound of our creator. That's one of the things that I desire more than anything.
Mm,
I'm a drummer.
mhm,
That's basically my instrument.
mhm.
Trying to learn the shofar, but that's not. I consider drums easier. As crazy as that sound, but I know that the sound of the shofar gives off is probably very tuned into our Creator's sound, according to His book.
Mm, mm,
His kings of old, prophets of old, uh, they always used His sound to uh, before battle, uh,
mhm,
before, during, and after feasts.
mhm.
Uh, they were a prominent part of it.
Right.
So, it's about releasing his sound. Uh,
Mhm.
and I believe that we're all given a sound that we're supposed to release.
Right.
I struggle from time to time with my drum kit. What do I do with it?
Mm,
I keep it? Do I sell it? Do I
mhm,
give it away? You know, there's hasn't been much use for it lately,
mm,
much to my chagrin.
mhm. Well,
Um,
I just want to interject here if I may.
sure.
For those of you who might not quite understand the whole idea of sound and frequency, that's in the release of the sound of the creator. We are going to be doing a discussion coming up soon, hopefully next week, and Jim's going to be part of that. Another brother will be joining us, where we're going to discuss that a little bit more, or a lot more. And so make sure that you tune into that, because I think it'll make a whole lot more sense when you understand, even science, proves that everything has a frequency, everything resonates, makes a sound, everything's energy, all that. So we are going to talk more about that in the very near future. So if that's kind of you're not quite understanding what he's talking about here yet, we're you will. So yes, and I was going to say that Jim and I and some others have been in the past, and I do believe in the future. And Jim, you're not going to get rid of those drums yet. um, Release a sound. We are, and I could speak for myself. I am not what you would consider a musician. Um, you know, and we could talk about this more the next discussion. But we are a group of people that come together to release the sound of what we know is the sound of our creator. And we don't get together. We don't get together to rehearse. We don't practice songs before we get together. And it's just been amazing, the sounds that have come through that. So we'll talk about that at another time. But yes, and that is part of, so we each have, like you're saying, we have something that we were created for. We are to create, we are to release the, I use the word sound, the frequency that has been placed inside of us, the gifts, maybe some people understand it better that way, into this world to bring the kingdom of our creator here. And so that is part of what you do. But we do that every day with our lives, with what comes out of our mouths. Um, Even the attitude that we carry, we don't even have to speak anything. The things that we do, the things that we choose to do, the choices that we make, it's all part of the sound that we make in this earth. So going back to this particular platform in the sound and releasing the frequency of hope, Jim has a story about his life and things that have something that happened in his life, that I want you to share, Jim, that you've agreed to share with, and I've heard it before. And yeah, so why don't you pick it up from there?
Okay. Um, When I was just about ready to turn 21, I had something that I had to overcome, a major obstacle in my life to overcome. I was in a very, very serious motorcycle accident, and somebody ran me off the road, and I hit a telephone pole, and I almost, you know, left this world. I'm very, very fortunate that I can even walk or play a drum uh, today.
Mm.
But through persistent therapy and different things that I did, I worked my way through that. And back in those days, I hadn't been part of a church or anything or any institution that um, had anything to do with our creator or his book.
Mhm.
So that was something that uh, I kind of put on myself. I'm sure he was in the details,
Mm.
um, because he wanted me preserved for a purpose. Um, so that's something that I accept at this point. He put a very, very good surgeon at my disposal. Um, um, and actually, we've remained friends. He's in his 80s now,
Mm.
and I have some contact with him occasionally. Usually, it's to get a shot in the back or something. Um, anyway, so I went through that, and I was able to overcome just about everything involved with that. And at a very young age, that was uh, a huge teaching lesson because I was constricted to a bed for a year and a half. And at the age of 21, with the things that I was doing back then, that was not a simple,
No.
that wasn't something easy to, I was very active.
Well, let me ask you okay, so how did you, a 21-year-old, yes, and a young man that doesn't want to be constricted. How did you make it from day to day? Like,
Um,
what was your,
I had a great staff of nurses that, I have to say, uh, they just made life uh, as joyful as it could be.
mm,
Um,
so the help with other people
yeah,
seems to be, it's a
yeah,
common thread, right? We need each other. So,
yeah.
okay.
There's a lot of things that I went through during that period of my life that were very, very difficult.
Mm.
Because of the drugs that I was on and
Mm.
how easy drugs were administered back then. There was a period of time after I think like 3 weeks. Um, the doctors, my doctor kind of just said, listen, whatever he wants drug wise for pain, you just give it to him.
Mm.
And, nurses, they're, that's their job.
Mhm.
And, if they go against what the doctor says, that could cost them their job.
Mhm.
But, I had a head nurse at one of the evening shifts once. I rang the bell, told her I wanted a shot. And, I can see why people get addicted to things like heroin. I mean,
Mhm.
I can, but she sat down with me. She said, I'm going to have a conversation with you. And if you mention this to the doctor, she said, I can assure you that I'll be fired.
Mm.
And she was always kind of very stiff back nurse. You
Mhm,
know, you could tell that when she barked, people jumped.
mhm,
Um, and you know, she wasn't somebody that you challenge. At least
I
I
get
didn't
the
view
picture.
it that way at the time anyway. But you know, she closed the curtain. She said, "I'm gonna have a chat with you," and you know, she says it. And the only reason I'm having the chat is because I care for you.
Mm,
She said, "I'm not here to be mean,
mhm,
cut you off, or do anything that's going to harm you." She says, "I care for you.
mm,
That's the reason I'm going to have this conversation." And basically, she said, "You know, if you got out of here in 2 or 3 weeks," she says, "which isn't likely, but let's just say something happens that you can get out of here."
mhm.
Um, she says, "I'm going to tell you right now, you're addicted, and you'll find heroin."
Wow.
She says, "and you know, it will probably kill you."
Oh my.
Um,
Mm,
and you know, I kind of poo-ha-ha at the beginning. I said, "No, there's no way I'm addicted to anything."
mm,
She said, "Well, here's my challenge." She said, "You know, if you can go 2 weeks without any withdrawal symptoms, I'll agree with you." But she says, "I'm going to leave you know that you're probably going to have some sleepless nights. You're going to be restless. Your your eating patterns are going to be disrupted."
mhm.
And sure enough, yeah, it took like 2 weeks at that point to, you know, get it out of my system. Once it was out of my system, I wouldn't even take an aspirin.
Wow.
You know, I was
So,
that against drugs.
yeah. Wow,
You know, I
at such a young age too, that's quite commendable. So just want to go back to those times when you were laying in that bed as a 21-year-old. Like what kind of thoughts did you have? Like you're in pain, you're not knowing what the outcome is going to be.
it was a very difficult time for a number of reasons. Um,
Mm-hmm,
One of them was a relationship
mm-hmm,
that came apart, and that was very, very hard to
mm-hmm.
deal with. You know, you're
Yeah.
in a bed, you know, you're in a
Mhm.
foreign place, you're 20 miles, 25 miles from, you know,
Yeah.
your friends, and you know, the person that I had a relationship with. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was, you know, I had some bad anger issues.
Okay. I was going to say, were you
Um,
angry about it? Did you have
yeah,
thoughts that, I'm never going to get out of here or I'm going to die or what? Like, did
I
you
did.
have that battle in your head or you just,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, as a 21-year-old, yeah, absolutely. But
Mm,
you know, I centered my thoughts on, crazy as it may sound, um, on recuperating, doing whatever it took to recuperate.
mhm,
You know, we didn't have the internet then. You know,
mm,
I had doctors and nurses I could talk to, but other than that, you know, there really weren't books published on what I was going through,
mhm,
that I knew of.
mhm.
Um, you know,
You just do it day by day.
you just do it day by day. Yeah.
And that will to live, and you're so young, wow.
My whole focus at that point in my life was to center on building a race car. As
Okay.
silly as that may sound, uh, but it was something that, you know, I was into, prior to the accident. And I was like the mechanic for all my friends. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when they had an issue, you know, I'd help them, and you know,
Hmm.
that sort of thing. So,
So
you know,
you had a I guess you could call it a dream, or it was a goal, it was a purpose, it was
yeah,
something
yeah,
that you wanted to do,
sure.
so you kept focused on that. And then you had the people surrounding you who really wanted to see you get healthy and well. And, you know, that really, so many times we just don't give credit to, you know, the healthcare professionals and, you know, their hearts of wanting people to be healed. And so, yeah. So, okay. So how long did it take you to recover from that?
Years,
Wow.
many years. I was laid up till I was laid up for, a year and a half.
Hmm.
I spent, I think it was 3 months in traction and then 8 months in a body cast.
Wow.
Um, and then another 6 months at a full leg cast. Uh, and quite a few surgeries.
Wow. And
You know,
you were in the hospital the whole time or you were home after?
I was in the body cast for, I think, 3 or 4 months. And they said, would you want to go home? Well, of course, I want to go home.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
um, so I was home for the remainder of the time that I was in the body cast. Then I got taken out of that and fit it with a full leg cast from your hip to your toes. And you had to learn how to walk and do stuff
Mhm.
again.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen overnight. It
Right.
was I look at that as a learning. I was It was a period of time where you got to learn
Mm.
how to adapt and overcome through your own mental state, uh, which you know I didn't. I didn't exactly have what you would say a bunch of encouraging people around me. They were just kind of realists that
Mhm.
this is your situation and you're going to be fine, Jim,
Mm.
but it's, what's
Well,
your definition of fine?
yeah. And when
Their
and
definition and my definition at that point was probably different.
yeah, and I mean when it does come down to it, we are the only ones who can make that decision to move on in our lives. And
Absolutely.
some people don't, but you know, you did. So okay, so I know that, so I'm gonna move forward because I know you have
Sure.
more of a story to tell um, of something else that happened later on in life. I don't know if there's anything you want to fill in between there. Um,
My next obstacle was when I was in 2005, through just some health circumstances, I came to find out that I had uh, cancer. Um, and again, having this previous thing with the motorcycle,
mhm,
it kind of taught me to deal with things.
mm,
So I had prostate cancer, and it was very severe.
mm,
It was caught very, very late. And my belief is that I was going to be healed.
mhm,
So, I had that, you know, you can, I make a, I make a, I'm kind of somebody who the book says to have faith.
mhm,
I tend to, after having a conversation with so many people in healing services, and listen to the pastors and different venues, by their faith, they were healed. Um, I make a distinction there. I think faith is something that it can be dismissed easy. Well, I thought I had the faith. No, did you believe?
Mm,
You
mm,
know,
difference.
that I think that categorizes it differently.
Yeah.
Somebody says, well, I think I have the faith to be healed, Jim. No, do you believe that you'll be healed?
Mm,
Do you believe it?
big difference. Yeah.
Are you going to overcome and believe that you are healed?
Hmm.
And I've seen people that, said they did, they passed away. Um, I can't, I can't explain anything to do with that
Yeah.
other than that was, um, his plan.
Yeah.
Our days are numbered.
Yeah.
He knows the day that we're born and the day that we leave.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes, you know, like, I got through that and I'm still cancer free.
Mm,
Um, I placed some limitations on my life,
hmm.
but that's
And there were rough
yeah,
days. I'm sure there were very rough days.
yeah, yeah.
It's interesting how, we kind of, and those of us who are, we're more at the end of the spectrum of our lives can look back, and the hindsight is what they say 2020, and look at the building blocks, the foundation or whatever, the times that we've been through in our lives to see how they have worked in our lives to make us stronger for the next test or trial or whatever you want to call it. And I think part of the whole thing about life too is to, and for me, was to realize that life, because I wanted to be like, I just want to have a perfect life. I want to be healthy, I want to be wealthy, I want to be wise, I want everything to go fine. And if I do this
Yeah,
and this,
yeah.
right. And sometimes we're taught that, but I don't think I was, but I'm just saying that, I was like that. And so I had to come to the realization that life is not going to be perfect, Donna. You're going to have tests and trials and difficulties but I'm finally coming, now that I'm way down here, I'm finally coming to the realization, understanding of that's how it is. And my belief is what makes a difference in all of that. So, you had this very difficult time when you were young, all leading up to what, you're having to deal with next, which was the cancer. And then,
2 years later,
yeah.
I was in um, what I would consider great health. Um, I played basketball with young people much, much, much younger than me, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. Um, worked out all the time.
Mhm.
Uh, and I had kind of a job at that point that required some physical, dexterity, you might want to
Mhm.
say. Um, However, I had at that time I was drumming in a worship team at a church not too far from us, and I went up on a Saturday night, and it was what everybody refers to as Palm Sunday was the following day. But on Saturday night I went up to tune my drum kit because I hadn't done it in a while, and I wanted it as close to perfect as I could get it.
Mhm.
And as I was leaving, I locked the door and turned around, and my truck was only 6 feet away. Um, and it was like somebody opened a faucet on my leg, and it just felt like blood was running out of me. This is
Mm.
it's a very strange thing, but this was like instant and very impactful. I didn't pass out, there wasn't that kind of, if you've ever passed out, you kind of feel blood drain from your head and
Mhm.
you kind of get, you know, uh,
Just
like a
disoriented or
like a cool sweat and that kind of thing. I didn't experience that. This was actually like some like blood was just running out of me.
hmm.
And what was happening was blood was running out of my heart and not being replaced, is what
Mhm.
was happening.
Oh, wow.
However, I didn't have any pain at that point. So, the first thought that went through my mind was, should I go back inside and make a telephone call?
Mhm.
Call my wife, call 911, call whomever. And this little voice said, no, don't do that. My second thought was, well, I wonder if I can make it home, which
Mhm.
was 6 miles away.
Mhm.
And this little voice said, no, don't do that either. Then I said, well, across the street is one of our deacons and an elderly woman that lived up on a hill right across from the church. They said, should I go to Elaine's? And this little voice said, that's where you're to go. Okay. So I got in my truck after, I could compose myself a little better, started it up and drove up the hill to her house, which was only, a minute and a half, 2 minutes away from her front door. And I got to her front sliding door, and she was about ready to retire to bed because it was dark. And had she gone around the corner, she wouldn't have heard me knock because she would have been in another part of the house.
Mhm.
Um, but just as she was turning the corner, so when I knocked on the door, she didn't have a doorbell on the sliding door. And she came around and opened the door. She knew something was wrong by the look on my face. And she helped me up the step to get into her house. And I just took one step in her house and I fell flat on my face. That's when I knew it was a heart attack
Mm.
because the pressure on my chest was incredible.
Wow.
And I looked out and my hand was, you know, next to my face and my skin was gray.
Mm.
And, I knew that wasn't good. I knew I was in probably bad shape at that point.
Wow.
So, she's realizing that something serious just happened because, I went flat down. There was nothing breaking my fall.
Mhm.
Um, so her thought was, Jim, I'm going to call 911, but I'm going to pray first.
Okay. Mm.
And I can't, explain a whole lot other than this. Through all that pain, this peace settled over me that, I'm now, in my head, in my spirit, I'm acknowledging I'm in your hands now.
Mm. Wow. What a feeling that must have been. Whew.
You know, you don't know the outcome.
Mhm.
You don't know when life ends. I just knew that, I was something really serious happened.
Serious. Yeah.
And so, she stayed, by me, held my hand, and
Mhm.
uh, offered me comfort, while before the EMTs came. And, I was only in her, after the EMTs came, I was only there a short period of time. They getting IVs in me, and, um, all I can remember is the the guy who was running the show. His name was John,
Mhm.
and John, his instructions were, basically, listen, we got to go.
Mm.
He's telling the driver, we got to go, but you can't get in an accident.
Wow.
You know,
He's serious. This is
and
serious.
and he's like pushing the fluid in the IV things to get it into me.
Mm.
And his instructions to me was, Jim, you can't go to sleep. You can't. You got to
Wow.
focus on me. Don't.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, since Elaine had prayed with me, what was going through my mind at that point was the songs that we were going to be doing the following day.
Hmm.
Uh, that,
The sound.
and the sound, yeah.
Wow.
And, my conversations with, uh, thanking him for all he had given in me in my life.
Wow. Wow. Not knowing what the outcome was going to be, what's coming next. Ooh, was
No,
it, so, okay, so all you were doing was this, hearing these songs and giving him thanks. You were were you feeling peace? Were you afraid? What?
no, no. At one point in the ambulance, I started to, I've read a lot of, Reader's Digests. Sometimes, when you're sitting in the dentist office or whatever,
Mhm.
and people would always say, well, if I say, something along the lines of, well, God, if you get me out of this, I will, you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
And all my life I read those stories, and I started to go down that road, and this voice came and said, don't do that.
Wow.
Cut me right off.
Wow.
So, I didn't go back to that place.
Mhm.
Um, I just continued to thank him, and then I
Praise.
went through a long thing of asking for forgiveness for different things I've done to different people,
Mhm.
to him, uh,
Mhm.
how I must failed him,
Yeah, yeah.
and eventually I got to the ER, and my wife and pastor were there,
Mhm.
and again, not you don't know.
Mhm.
All I know is they're cutting clothes off of me, and they're
Mm.
going to ship me off to the OR. They were in the midst of assembling a team for a surgeon
Mhm.
to, see what they could do for me.
Right.
And so I end up in the OR, and there's this beautiful light that's over me, and it's
Mm.
it's a fluorescent light, but it's got this floral design that's you know
Mm.
put into plastic or glass, whatever, was covering the fluorescent light. And it was pretty, it was floral.
Mhm.
And, as time goes on, Don, here's what I can say to you and I can say to everybody else. Um, I believe now that, when my day comes where I leave this world, uh, it's actually a very beautiful experience.
Mm.
You may be in a lot of pain.
Mhm.
However, uh, the pain kind of becomes secondary.
Mm.
If you know for sure, you believe that you're in his hands and
Mhm.
he has control of your destiny.
Mm.
If that's something that you believe, I know the book says death has lost its sting.
Mm.
And I can attest to that,
Yeah.
because as much pain as my chest was in,
Hmm.
um, while they're working on me, at this point they're fishing stents into me.
Mm.
Um, you're going.
Mm.
You can feel your body shutting down. It's this your body can't continue going on its path that it's on. I mean, you know that.
Okay.
And you don't know when it's going to end, but the end is coming.
Okay.
But for me, I was still had that confidence that I was in his hand. Now, the whole time that all this is going on, I'm continuing to worship him.
Mm.
Um, uh, Still coming with things that I'm thankful that he had gifted me with.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff that came to mind that I needed to be forgiven of.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and eventually, you know, this light that was above me, you know, went away, and I felt everything in my body stop,
Mm.
and the light went away, and the room opened up, and um, all I can say is I felt that I was traveling at a unbelievable speed,
Mm.
but it's not a body that's feeling the speed. So you don't have a sense of, if you go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, you'll feel that speed down here, but the speed I was going at was much greater than that. And,
Wow.
uh, but you don't feel it. You just know stuff is going by you.
Okay.
Like, what's going by you, I can't say.
It's too
Some
fast.
people say, well, you get a vision of your life, and well, I didn't see people, I didn't see anything like that.
Mm. You were going fast.
I was going very fast, and then in an instant, it seemed I was settled in a place that was just a tremendous, tremendous peace.
Mm.
Now, was it in a garden? I That wasn't something that I was focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is that there was this tremendous brightness, whiteness that you can't find down here.
Mm.
You know, um, it's very intense. I don't think that human eyes could look on it.
You can't explain
And
it. Can't put it in words, right? In human
no, no, no,
language.
you can't. It's peace without an understanding of the real source of peace.
Beyond
Um,
understanding. Yep.
so that's when I realized where I felt I was, and that was in his presence. And you don't think that you could speak or talk or any of that, but I was of complete sound mind,
Mm.
which is maybe kind of hard to comprehend, but I nothing changed in my personality. I was still me.
Okay.
And my words were, my exact words were, Lord, you know that no one would ever want to leave this place, because that piece is just,
Mm.
you don't want to leave it. It's that wonderful. Um, but I know that what you created me for hasn't been finished.
Mm.
So I'm asking you to send me back.
Okay.
And pretty much with that, I felt this, and this is something else. It's not a lot of understanding of this intense love just pour through me.
Mm.
Um, uh, you know, I can say this for probably 6 months prior to this happening. There was a song that Paul Wilbur did. Um, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It may have been called Song of Psalms.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
Or no, it was called Dance with Me.
Dance with me. Yes. Yes. Hmm. Hmm. Well, I'll just interject here real quickly. I had a dream or experience once of actually how I can explain it was actually dancing with him. And the again, the feeling is not it's like you're in that moment, the now moment of that happening. And even when you awake from it or you come back for whatever you want to call it, you can never explain that feeling again. And it's like, I know it was so amazing and awesome, but it's like,
Yeah,
I like try to get it back, but I can't because it happened in that moment. And it is, and the word says that, we'll have a peace that surpasses all understanding. And we are spirit. And so we can't, I had this conversation the other day with somebody. We are flesh. We're in these bodies. And for those who are believers in the temple, whatever you want to call it, the flesh, the body, but yet we're spirit. We can't explain in this the way the spirit understands and experiences. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah.
So yeah, that dance with me, I can
So,
totally relate to.
so there's that song, and that song prompted something into me, where Paul says, there's this deep love that um, that is kind of not explainable, uh, but it's the depth of it is beyond our understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I had been pursuing that and finding everything I could ever possibly come up with on the internet pertaining to that thought, that direction, because
Mm.
I wanted to know the depth of it, that love. That was my heart's desire at that point in my life. And uh, I remember, encouraging our worship team to do the song. And the Sunday that they chose to do it, I had to take a trip up to New York to my sister's house, I think it was. Um, so I wasn't going to be there, but I was like really excited, um, just because of the nature of the song, to find out, how it went over. Because, I was discussing it with who was the worship leader at that point. And she was a little hesitant. She loved the song, but she was a little hesitant. She didn't feel like, the people there that were ready for that kind of intimacy. And, I kind of like, why would, how does that work?
Mm.
You know, I thought that's what we're supposed to move towards.
Was this before you had this experience or after?
This was like 6 months before.
Okay. Okay.
So, she does the worship, and, I get back on Monday, and I call and, I wanted to find out, how it went over.
Mhm.
She said, well, it offended a lot of people.
Hmm.
I said, you gotta be kidding me. Like, what's that all about? She said, well, she says, not everybody's on the same plane as you are, or we are. There's some people almost considered it, somewhat blasphemous,
Mm. Mm.
because, you're speaking of this intimacy and,
Mhm.
people have a hard, you know, we're in a Pennsylvania Dutch area. So I don't want to pigeonhole people or categorize people,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they can be a little rough, a little tough.
Mhm.
Um,
So
and
I'm sorry, go ahead. Finish that story.
and then 2 weeks before I had the heart attack, I had a dream. I was in a cabin and I was with a friend, and he was a good friend. And, I cared for him.
Mhm.
I used to mentor him almost every week. And he was also an aspiring drummer. He wanted, he bought a drum kit and he was learning.
Mhm.
Um, but we were in a cabin and a bear broke in, and I watched the bear kill him. Now that was a spiritual death, not a physical death,
Okay.
but it was physical in the dream. And then the bear came at me,
Mm.
and I knew I was about to be attacked, and it was going to try to kill me.
Mm.
This was it killed him, so it was coming for me now. And it was a very angry bear, and I
Mm.
remember being pinned up against the wall with the talons going in me, his nails going in me,
Mhm.
and then the dream ended. So I didn't know exactly, at that point, what was this all about? But it came into my spirit that I believed that uh, Satan was trying to kill me.
Oh.
That's the thought that came to me.
Mhm.
So I sat down with her, the worship leader, the following Sunday after I had this dream during the week, and I said to her, I said, I think I had this inkling that Satan is out to kill me, wants me dead. I don't know why, but wants me dead.
Mhm.
He comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Right.
So, and I don't know that was taken all that seriously. Um, but we prayed on that particular subject, and then 2 weeks later, I had this heart attack where
Mm.
you know I um, I would guess they say when your heart stops, you're dead.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
and so my heart stopped, and um, I asked Father to send me back. He did,
Okay.
and
Obviously.
he sent me back with a completely healed heart,
Wow.
which is impossible.
Wow.
That's not a reasonable thing to say. It's not reasonable.
Right. Right.
I remember he asked me if I wanted to take a look at the fluoroscope, what had occurred. Yeah, I said, sure, I guess. Why? He says, well, what happened was pretty unusual. And then he explained to me what, a cardio infarction was, and it's heart death, and what
Mhm.
happens with the type of heart attack that I had, which, is referred to as a widowmaker. Many people just drop dead. You're there one moment and you're dead the next.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, in most cases, you have a 7% chance of survival with a widowmaker if you're within 10 minutes of medical help, like an ER,
Mm,
a good ER.
yeah.
Um, and I can tell you that, from the time I had the heart attack to, I was having this conversation with the doctor, over 90 minutes had passed.
Wow.
That I can tell you.
Wow.
And that was getting help pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so we're getting probably to the time that we have to end. So let's speed it up a little bit. So you come back. Um, you asked to come back, and you are allowed to do that. And how does your life change because of what you went through?
There's a interesting little side note to what occurred during this time period.
Mhm,
Um, I had the heart attack on, I guess you would consider it March 30th in that year.
mhm,
I think that was a Saturday, March 30th or 31st, I think it was. And um, a couple days later, I wasn't permitted, other than my wife, visitors. But finally, I was in there for a couple days, and they finally allowed my pastor to come in, and he came in with my wife um, that particular day. And, you know, I'm, I'm laying in bed, and he comes in and he says, we have some small talk, how you doing, that sort of thing.
mhm,
He said, I got an email this morning. He said, I want to share with you. He says, I don't, first of all, he was very specific. He says, I don't ascribe to looking at this certain website because there's a lot of prophetic stuff on there. And he says, I believe in the prophetic and all that. He said, but, I don't really ascribe to it
mhm,
or the people who write into it. He said, but, it impressed me, impressed on my spirit to share this with you, show it to you. It kind of indicates that I was supposed to come here with oil to anoint you, pray for you. Um, and he says, I'm going to leave you with, I printed this prophecy out. He said, I feel that I'm supposed to give it to you.
mm,
So, as he's, we're talking, what have you, I'm glancing at the top page. And one of the things that was on there had to do with Native American Indians, the spirit, um, and a time of change is coming, and it's going to be done through a new sound,
hmm,
a sound that we've never heard before. And, because it had to do with Native American Indians, it kind of, I remember reading this, and I said to him, I said, I've read this. He says, well, Jim, you couldn't have, because it was just published yesterday.
hmm,
So, and this was on April the 4th, I think.
hmm,
He says it was just published last night. So you couldn't have read it. I said, no, I remember the thing with the Native Americans. Um, and, in those days, my thing with Native Americans was they were pagan. That's, what I was taught.
mhm,
So, why would I think anything different? And here's a prophet, supposed prophet, saying that, it's a sound that they understand, but the church is not going to understand, and many will reject it. And those that reject it, um, basically, it's going on to say they will be passed by,
Mm,
which, me having some semblance of understanding to do with the sound of worship going forth, um, and especially prophetic sound going forth, is something that I was always mostly and highly attracted to.
mm-hmm,
I wasn't necessarily into canned songs, rehashing something somebody else did many, many, many times over.
mm-hmm,
I was never into that. But when we would get into the freedom of going where, the spirit, the ruach would take us,
mm-hmm,
my spirit would just jump,
mm-hmm.
and I would pursue that to, the ends,
Right.
and sometimes those times at this particular small church went on for quite some time,
Mm-hmm,
which we used to disturb some people, because that wasn't the normal way of doing things.
right.
We would do uh, a certain number of songs in a certain allotment of time, and that was really the rule of thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Once we, Lola, stop, stop. She's just being a pit bull.
Let's just say
Sorry.
it's okay.
Um, anyway,
So you get this prophecy and you had already seen it before.
and so, the question becomes is, where did I see it?
Mm,
That becomes the question. Who showed it to me?
hmm,
And there's people that were, into this particular site, uh, still are to this day, and ascribe by many of the things that are said on it. I don't, because it's, the same old thing being repeated and repeated and repeated.
mhm,
You know, every year somebody comes up with something similar,
mhm,
but this particular one was done in a way that was very different. Um, and the whole thing dealt with this sound that's going to come forth,
mm,
that most people aren't going to understand it. Um, me, on the other hand, it's something that I believe that we've crossed at times, okay, in our worship, uh, that we've put forth, releasing His sound,
mhm,
and it's like you pointed out earlier. We don't rehearse anything.
right.
We've never done that, and I don't know of a worship team who doesn't rehearse.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's, not to cut you off there, I want to, because we are getting kind of long, but
Yeah,
we're probably going to talk about that a lot more in
yeah,
when
I'm
we get
sure.
together with Blaine. Um, so you come back, you see this prophecy. How did this whole experience affect your life then? I mean,
Well, for months afterwards, I wanted to go back.
did you?
Yeah, I
Mhm, I
you
can
know,
imagine. Well,
mm,
who wouldn't after
mm,
experiencing such peace
yeah,
and love?
you want to go back. You want to. experience all that again. Um,
Mm,
I can say that the most impactful thing was the 60 days following the incident,
okay.
where I had to return to work,
Mm-hmm.
um, which everybody encouraged me to do. I mean, everybody, church, pastor, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you're ready to go back to work. Was I supposed to go back to work? That becomes the question. Was I supposed to do something else?
Yeah.
Um, which I was in a certain place in those days.
Mm-hmm.
They're yours, Ryan.
Yep.
So you can take them upstairs.
Sure.
Um, I watched, I had some incredible encounters uh, in that 60 days, stuff that not
Mm.
many people can account for, y- you know.
Well, it
Um,
sounds like we might have to do a part two.
that's fine, whatever.
So how would you, what would you say to people? I mean, you here you have this life of, it's a life of overcoming for one thing, if we want to say basically. And how would you encourage others to, what would you say? I mean, I don't know, how do you relate even that to people if they've never been through those situations? But and honestly, when we look at your story, we listen to your story, we think, oh my gosh, like I think I haven't gone through anything compared to what you've gone through, you know. I get it. I get personally, I am so encouraged when I listen to other people's stories, and everybody has their own story. What I've been through and the things that I've been through, if I compare myself to you, especially physically, it wouldn't compare, but we're not supposed to do that. We all
No,
have our own stories. But I look at other people's stories and say, my goodness, Jim has been struggling with physical things, first of all, since he was young. And he has been able to pull through his faith, his belief, his experience. He has come through, he has overcome. He is, and it's not to say that you don't still have some physical things, issues to struggle with. We all do. That's life.
yep,
Again, we have to come to realization of that. If I could have really realized that when I was younger, maybe my attitude, maybe my thinking would have been a little bit different. But anyway, so I'm encouraged when I listen. I've always been encouraged. What I'm doing now is the beginning of a lifetime dream of, I always wanted to do films that would be encouraging. People need something, and especially in this day, we need something to keep us going. There's so much fear, there's so much disease, there's just our world's falling apart. You know that.
yeah,
And so that's one of the biggest reasons I'm doing this. And it's a fulfillment of a lifetime, I think, purpose for me to allow others to share their stories. So we do have to close. What can you close with? What do you want people to know? What do you want to say?
believe.
Mm. What does that mean? What does that mean, Jim? I don't know what you're talking about. What does believe mean? Believe in what? Believe that I can do it? Believe that, I don't know. I'm playing
Believe that there's a creator who loves us beyond anything that we can ever
yes. Yes.
hope or imagine.
Mm.
And I think if you can get to that, there's a possibility you can get to that threshold. What life deals with you from that point on, isn't doesn't become that dramatic. It's
Mm.
like, I know the world is um, at a point that is not really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do I think it's you know the end is upon us? Well, that depends on what type of years you're speaking of.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And that's another
if
story
it's
too. Yeah.
by 2030, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's my belief.
Right.
Um, and
So,
that's based on a lot of things.
mm,
So my belief is, we have a period of time left now. Some things are going to happen, I believe, soon
mhm,
that aren't going to be all that comforting.
right.
Okay, but you can have this belief and this hope um, that can take you through any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and your story, brother, has it's part of helping others to believe. I firmly believe we don't go through everything just for ourselves. Um,
Nope.
not at all, because there are things that we are just not going to understand why we went through. And we, again, going back to even that first thing that happened to you when you were 21, is that you had people around you, even if it was just in that, but in that hospital, to encourage you, to pull you through, to help you get through that. And this is what your story is doing. You're somebody's going to hear this story and they're going to go, wow, if that guy could go through that, then maybe, certainly, surely I could get through what I'm going through now. And we never know. Like you said, we just don't know. Like you said earlier, we don't know. We could hang up here today and that's it. Um, unless we've been told otherwise, we're going to be around for a little bit longer, but we don't know. And we need to encourage one another. And again, that's the biggest reason why I'm doing this now, is to help others to get through, even if it's a moment, even if somebody turns on this recording and doesn't watch it all the way through, or turns it on at a certain part and that speaks to them, they don't listen to the rest of it, it's helping them at that moment, in that moment, because we only have the now. We only have moments that we, like you, had to
Yeah.
live through moments. And you asked in that moment, when you were in that presence of the creator, I'm not done. I don't believe I'm done yet. I want to go back. And so in that moment, you could have decided, you could have asked not to. So thank you so much, Jim. Really, I know there's so much more. You are just a fountain of um, of of hope and of encouragement, of his word, of knowledge. I know you are. I appreciate you so much in my own personal life, and in what you're doing, in releasing your sound in all the ways, because we don't just have one way to release the sound, not
Sure.
just through your drums and through your story. So I really, really do appreciate you and the time that you've taken to share with us. Um, Guys, this is, again, none of us, or anybody that I bring on to share their stories of hope and encouragement, none of us are getting paid for this. I'm going to be real. Let's have some real talk here right now. Okay. We're taking time out of our days. And by the way, when I'm done here, there's more work to be done before it can even be put up on YouTube. But we're not getting paid for it. We're not asking to get paid. We sure would like to have this get out to more people. I mean, that is truly my heart. And that's what I've been called to do. I would certainly be rather be sitting, playing my keyboard, learning to get better at that. Got a guitar, want to do that, want to paint, want to go dance, want to go out in the, but I know that I'm supposed to do this. And so all we're asking for you to do is to share this with others. At least one person who will be encouraged by Jim's story. And I'm asking you to share it. I'm asking you to subscribe so that you can help support others. If you do want to donate, hey, reach out. We'd be glad to take it and to just bless others with it. So Jim, thank you. I appreciate you so much. And you're going to see Jim again in a few more recordings because we are going to talk more about sound and frequency. We're going to get down to what it is as much as we understand it in our finite minds, but also through our spirit and our heart. And stay tuned because I know there's going to be more that's going to come through this channel according to what our creator wants to be released as a sound in this earth. And by the way, if you are a believer, if you do believe that, you know, you're here for a reason, you do have a sound to be released into this earth. We are not just plopped here to enjoy and eat up on the resources, and I don't mean to preach here, but we are not just plopped here to be making money, and which is not bad. We need that. It's a resource. But we're here for a purpose. And so do a little bit of digging, maybe a lot of digging to find out what your purpose is, what your sound is, what you're going to release of the kingdom, of the shaman, of the creator into this earth to make it a better place. So we'll see you on the next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, all that. Love you all. And
Thanks,
till
Donna.
the next one. Ciao.